Well, it is episode 11 of the Philly Sports Convo. I'm Jason Lee, and my guest, he's back again. Look who it is, folks. And I would reel off everything he does, but I don't have that much time. Marc Farzetta, let's see, it's the Farzy Show. You're all over the Jacob Media channel. What else are you doing these days, Marc? You got a lot going on.
As much as I possibly can, Jason. So one day I can grow up and be just like you. That's my goal.
Dude, you got to set the bar higher than that. You know, one thing I did not mention, you are the public address announcer for the Philadelphia Wings for the lacrosse team. And I know from talking to Matt Cord with the Sixers, Matt has some names that he's loved to say over the years. Are there favorite names you have for the Wings?
Yeah, there's some great names that the Wings have given. Obviously, one that jumps to mind is when we used to be able to say Kevin Crowley, who played all those years for the Wings. He was just back in town with Vancouver, as a matter of fact. So that was great to see him again. But saying the Big Cat over the loudspeakers there at the Wells Fargo Center was an awesome thing. Kevin Crowley there, the Big Cat himself, was great. We just had a name on his team as well. I believe it was it was one of those things, Jason, I'm sure you've been there, where you've said the name properly while you read it off the page to yourself.
Yes.
And then when it comes time for that person to score a goal, or it comes time for that person, there was something happened in the game, they had a penalty, you got to say it, you freeze up for a second. But I believe the name was pronounced Lambidides.
That's a tough one.
Eventually, yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
So years ago, I did some PA announcing for the Delaware Blue Coats back when they were still called the 87ers, and back then, Giannis's brother, who I think is on the Bucks roster, right? Isn't he? He plays with the Bucks now, right?
Uh-huh.
Thanasis,
yeah.
Thanasis Antetokounmpo. That was a great name. They called him T for short.
It's funny when the first name can sometimes be tougher than the last name.
Yeah, that's true. Well, okay, listen, I don't want to keep you too long, but I got a lot I want to talk to you about because, and you know, look, you know what a big fan I am of yours. To me, you are one of the most informative guys out there, but you also know that when you're doing a sports talk show, you're there to entertain people too. And you've got the perfect combination of information and entertainment on the Farzy Show. You did it on the radio. You did it on TV for years. So let's start with the Phils. Can you give me just first of all a win total? Do they make 100?
I don't think this Phillies will make 100 wins. I would love to see that happen, but I got to go back to the years of Roy Halladay, of course, Cliff Lee, and those guys. And you talk about giving the record of all-time wins in the season to Charlie Manuel, having him oversee that roster. I can't quite see them getting to that spot. I have a huge concern about what Bryce Harper can bring to the table if his back is going to be an issue this season. No back issue with Bryce Harper, and yeah, you will definitely get to that 100-win plateau. But as anyone who has had any type of back issue, professional athlete or not, you'll know that that's not something that just goes away. So you're going to be looking at a lot of rest probably throughout the season. I hate to use the term, but you have to use it here.
Yep.
Load management with Bryce Harper. But I would say the Phillies at least would get to 95.
Okay.
I have them at 95 wins right now. That's where I'd put the Phillies. 95 and a half, I would go right around that line for the upcoming season.
Now, I don't know about you, Marc, talking about back problems, because I think I've got a few years on you, probably more than a few years on you. Last time I threw my back out, you know how I did it? I was reaching to hang something up in my closet, just a shirt on a hanger. I'm hanging it up, and I feel like something pop in my back, and all of a sudden I couldn't move. And you're right, for like 2 weeks I couldn't do a damn thing. So those back problems are no joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's been something that's been talked about a lot with Bryce Harper because he has such a violent swing. A lot of people, when he signed his contract, a 13-year deal with the Phillies, a lot of people talked about whether or not he was going to be able to hold up just based on the way that he cuts through the strike zone with that swing. And if that back is going to start to really be an issue, the designated hitter spot might be taken up by somebody else, with Bryce Harper playing more first base or your first baseman this year. that's even more reason to believe that it could be an issue. But again, if it's something they're able to manage, then you can definitely get to that 100-win plateau, if not a little bit over it.
So let me ask you this. If you're Rob Thompson, who's your leadoff hitter?
If I'm Rob Thompson, look, this goes against everything I believe in when it comes to a leadoff hitter in baseball. But the only real analytic, the only real stat that matters is wins and losses. That's it. Nothing else matters. And if you win a lot of baseball games with a particular non-prototypical leadoff hitter at the top of your order named Kyle Schwarber, then by golly, you got to keep Kyle Schwarber at the top of the order for the Philadelphia Phillies. As much as my guy is Trey Turner, Bryson Stott. Those are two prototypical.
I'm with you on that
hitters.
one.
Yeah, you're asking me my prediction as to what's gonna happen. It's gonna be Kyle Schwarber.
Okay,
if you ask me what I want to happen, it's going to be Trey Turner or Bryson Stott.
So if Marc Farzetta is managing the team, it's Trey Turner or Bryson Stott.
Absolutely. But fortunately for Phillies fans everywhere, I am not managing the team. Although they might have wanted me to manage the team in the playoffs last year, because I think a lot of the Philadelphia fan base could have done a better job than Rob Thompson in that particular scenario.
So what you're saying is you would not have put Craig Kimbrell back into close, right? Is that what you're telling me?
I would have put Craig Kimbrell back on the bus, back on the plane, back in South Philadelphia to pack his things before I ever put him back on the pitcher's mound in Arizona. And
I think everybody watching and listening to this probably agrees with you. But hey, speaking of the closer, I mean, MLB.com just rated the Phillies bullpen the best in baseball. Honestly, that was shocking to me. So your thoughts on that? I mean, I know they're going to go with the closer by committee, at least at the beginning, but in your mind, who's the closer on this team?
I think it has to be Jose Alvarado. I don't think you can look past that. I mean, I think his numbers speak for himself. I think the man is battle-tested, veteran also. I think that's got to be your guy on the back end of the bullpen to not just pitch in the 7th or the 8th inning, but the guy to come in and slam the door closed in the 9th. And he has been so versatile throughout his career here in Philadelphia that you can rely on him in that role. The number one thing of a closer is the mentality. I mean, obviously, it's great to have great stuff, but we've seen plenty of pitchers that have great stuff that it either all of a sudden just goes away or they don't have the mental makeup to be the last line of defense or the bridge to a W, chalking up a W there. So for me, I think it has to be Jose Alvarado. Like I said, you have a guy that has been through a lot in his Major League Baseball career. He's had a lot of success, and of everything else, he has that mentality to be able to be that last line of defense for a Phillies bullpen. Do you have confidence in the bullpen? Because when I heard that MLB.com rated them number 1, honestly, it shocked me. I mean, what was your reaction to that? Junior Marte has to step up for a team like this. I'm not used to the Phillies bullpen, not since the bridge to Lidge back in 2008. I'm not used to the Phillies bullpen being something worth bragging about. I'm not used to them being ranked anything close to number 1 since that magical 2008 season. So my first thought was, really? And then I remember that Craig Kimbrell isn't here anymore.
Well, that's
so we
true.
Don't have to be haunted by the ghost of Kimbrell's past, for instance. Yaris Familia is no longer around here, hasn't been for quite some time.
Good point.
So he won't be haunting you as a guy to, be the hopefully he catches back on and rejuvenates his career. But for me, I look at some of those younger guys to step up, Marte being one of them, and of course Alvarado being the anchor to this bullpen that they so desperately need. What are your thoughts on Rojas in center field? I mean, a lot of people are saying, he had a bad spring at the plate, but to me, if this lineup is clicking the way it's supposed to, it's okay. I mean, his defense will more than make up for it. What do you think about that? Well, look, you can have a good center fielder in Brandon Marsh. You could have Whit Merrifield there in left field take up that spot. You could certainly have Kyle Schwarber take up that spot. You have guys that can take up that spot. You should not. You're right. You should not be looking at Johan Rojas to be a guy to carry you offensively speaking. If you just need him to be a 9-hole hitter, if you just need him to play a great center field like we know he can, well, then that's all you should rest on. Yep. That's all you should really need. I made the point the other day that when you do talk about the names in this lineup, if you're looking on Johan Rojas to all of a sudden carry these bats, you've got bigger problems than Johan Rojas. So for me, I am fine with him making the big league club. I did find it interesting that Dave Dombrowski, before the spring training schedule started, referenced how Johan Rojas is not just going to be given anything. Mm-hmm. It looks like he was given this opportunity on the big league roster out of spring training, despite a porous spring training numbers that he put up there. But bottom line is he would be your best defensive center fielder. So they're just letting him loose and hoping that he finds a way to swim while he's in the very deep waters of Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, he'll cover a lot of ground out there. With all this in mind, are you doing the Phillies postgame show again on Jacob?
I will not be doing a Phillies postgame show on Jacob. I'll actually be doing a Phillies postgame show with Locked On Sports with, I believe you crossed over with this man as well, Tom Lee of former WIP program director Tom Lee, my first boss ever in radio.
Yeah.
Tom is actually a talent recruiter for Locked On Sports. So I'll be doing a Phillies postgame show for Locked On Sports this year. You
got to tell Tom I said hello. Yes, when you and I were at WIP together, Tom was our program director.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. My first boss ever in radio, man. Love Tom Lee.
Oh, he was a great dude. He was a great dude. All right, before we move on from baseball, I got to get your thoughts on the whole Shohei Ohtani thing. I mean, do you think he's hiding something? Is the story legit? I mean, did his interpreter really steal from him? It's a crazy story. It's like something out of a Hollywood movie, and oddly enough, it's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, right. We'll have to go that far to send the script after this is all said and done. But when it comes to Ohtani, the whole thing if he is completely innocent, this does not pass my smell test. Not even close. For the story to have changed a number of times, and we're only in the beginning of it, for it to go from, if I covered Mitsuhara, my interpreter, I covered his gambling debt too, by lawyers jumping in and announcing that this was part of a massive theft, for supposedly Ohtani finding out amongst teammates and colleagues that he was getting duped by his interpreter and quote unquote putting the pieces together as everybody else was finding out. This does not make any sense whatsoever to me. Look, if you're a baseball fan and you're not a Phillies fan, and you don't even have to be a Dodgers fan, whatever, but the way you look at it, does this make sense? I know you're rooting for a baseball player to not be found guilty of betting on sports and especially betting on baseball. But if you're a Phillies fan, then you don't want anything good to happen to the Dodgers, and having them have a wasted free agency period with Shohei Ohtani would be marvelous. But if you're really trying to look at this objectively, it just doesn't add up to think that Ohtani had no idea about this. And when reporters were asking Ohtani's camp, okay, you said that you reported this to authorities. What authorities did you report it to?
Yeah, right.
And then they say no comment. If that's you or me, and I'm telling, no comment. I'm not telling you who's investigating. That means I'm hiding something.
Absolutely.
So it might not be as vicious as him betting on baseball, but I would be shocked if he had absolutely nothing to do with anything Mitsuhara was doing.
And you got to think, with all these investigations going on, because there's a federal investigation, there's an MLB investigation, you got to think at some point this is all going to come to the surface. And then what does MLB do? Yeah.
And let's think about this, Jason. I think one of the best jobs you could have in sports is interpreting languages. You're not all that change in there. You probably already speak the language anyway, both languages. All you got to do is translate for these guys.
And you make a good living.
Tell me you're going to put that whole great career in jeopardy for gambling? I understand gambling addiction can strike anybody.
Absolutely,
but this one just doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And hearing all this about Ohtani, it makes me think of Pete Rose. Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? I mean, look, just a brief caveat here. As a kid, he was my favorite baseball player. I loved Pete Rose growing up. Then you get older, and you see all these warts. And when he came back a couple years ago for the 1980 celebration, and they bring up the whole situation where he was with underage girls back in the day, and he's screaming at the reporter, "Why do you care about that? It happened." You know what? If he just would have said, "You know what? I was young and stupid, and I regret it," it would have been done. He doesn't know how to apologize.
Yeah, I'm done making excuses for Pete Rose, and maybe I'm a little bit different because I didn't grow up in the Pete Rose era. His heyday was well before my time. But for me, I am done trying to take up any campaign for Pete Rose to get in the Hall of Fame because every time somebody says, no, this guy should be in the Hall of Fame, he does something else to disappoint that group that is trying to take up for him. So for me, look, should the all-time hits leader be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. It's a shame that person's Pete Rose, who doesn't deserve any pleasantries from the game of baseball anymore. And that campaign, as far as I'm concerned, is over and done.
And I hate to say it, but I agree with you. I mean, when the Phillies were going to put him on the Wall of Fame years ago, that's when the whole story with the underage girls came out. If he would have handled that differently, or if it never happened, if it never came out, and he went on the wall, I think that might have been little by little the path toward eventual baseball Hall of Fame. But as usual, he handled things the wrong way. Look, if he would have apologized back in '89 when this was all, when the whole gambling thing was discovered, I have a problem, I'm sorry, I'm going to get help, he'd be in the Hall of Fame by now. I mean, I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely, but not his. Yeah, but that's not Pete Rose's MO. I mean, look, going back to it, they pushed back his Hall of Fame, or excuse me, his Wall of Fame induction. They pushed it back a few years because of what went down with the relationship he had with a 14-year-old while in Cincinnati, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. He comes back and immediately starts talking down to a female reporter, and then they put him on the air. Let's not forget that.
I forgot about that.
On TV during a game.
What were they thinking, Mark?
He started using obscene language.
Yes.
I mean, there's I'm not fighting that battle, man. I used to be in the camp of let Pete Rose in, this, that, and the other. Then he told you he was lying to you the whole time about whether or not he bet on baseball. That's when I was pretty much done with him. And then as a father of a daughter, mess around with a 14-year-old, man. I'm not going to make any excuses for you.
No, listen, I totally, very well said. I totally agree. And, I tell people that, so when he was banned in '89, he wrote a book called Pete Rose, My Story. I spent $20 to buy the book. But then years later, when he admitted that he did bet, he wrote a second book, which made the first book null and void. So he owes me $20, if you ask me.
I thought you were going to say you bought the second book.
No. You know what? I kind of feel the way you do, that I can't make excuses for him anymore. And I hate saying that because in my basement here, I've got a plaque hanging up with a photo of when Pete Rose broke Ty Cobb's record, with Steve Garvey standing right behind him at first base in Riverfront Stadium. And so I'm a fan. I'll always be a fan of the player, but not the person.
Right.
And that's really sad. All right, let's move on to the Eagles, because as we record this, the NFL owners meetings are going on, and Jeff Lurie spoke, and among other things, he talked about why he decided to keep Nick Sirianni, and he talked glowingly about Sirianni's, I think the way he termed it was his football IQ. Is he being honest about that? Is he BSing us, Mark?
He's being honest that he likes Nick Sirianni's football IQ, because Nick Sirianni's football IQ says let Jeffrey Lurie do what he wants as an owner, let Howie Roseman do what he wants as a director of football operations. Look, I actually like Jeffrey Lurie, but there are two things that he said during his 40-minute press conference that, Jason, I literally laughed out loud. Okay. I literally, LOL. The first thing was that he had this intensive process at the end of the season to decide whether or not Nick Sirianni was the guy that should still be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Jason, an intense process. Do you remember what Jeffrey Lurie was doing right at the end of the season?
Didn't he go away?
Yacht shopping.
That's right.
Shopping,
that's
Jason.
right.
He was yacht shopping.
So what you're saying is
he was on the phone going, about Nick Sirianni. Hold on, I want the football. I want the yacht with the football-shaped hot tub in the back. Okay, thanks. So anyway, Nick Sirianni. What I need from Nick Sirianni is a guy that is going to be able to lead an offense. And he kept on. So don't tell me about an intensive process when the first thing you did after the playoff game was go try to buy a yacht. Look, I got no problem with you spending your money. Good for you that you've earned it. Congratulations. That wasn't, I don't think, the time to do it. It's at least what you might call a real bad look.
It was a bad look.
The other thing that I laughed at was when he talked about Nick Sirianni and the ingredients and the qualifications that he had. Although they have really shown since we hired him, these ingredients that he has as a head coach. That you have gotten a diminishing return on your investment, especially when you talk about this last season. You talk about the epic collapse that they had. I know Jeffrey Lurie talked many times about being 31-7 before the collapse happened and all that stuff, and that's fantastic. That's amazing. That's historic. but it was also a historic collapse. And if you're talking about a guy who's not calling plays, which is just the tip of the iceberg, not calling plays, has now taken a step back from game planning, who apparently, according to what he said yesterday, what Nick Sirianni said himself is he really hasn't been in the room as much as he had with Kellen Moore to start putting things together for the upcoming season. So that's already a shift. We're talking about a guy who said, I'm calling the plays. Now he's not calling the plays. We've talked about a guy who said, this is my offense. Now it's Kellen Moore's offense. We've talked about a guy who has said, I can be a leader of men. Well, then what the heck happened at the end of last season? Those guys didn't look motivated.
No.
So the question that is posed to Nick Sirianni about, and I know it's become a joke, what is it you say you do here? It's a legitimate question, because it seems like all he does is the thing that Chip Kelly lost sight of, which is make sure the owner feels like he owns the team and make sure the general manager feels like he can make moves to help this team win. Other than that, Nick Sirianni just kind of be a go-between, I guess, between the players and coordinators, be a babysitter. I don't know what it is. I don't want to believe that the head coach of a football team I want to win games is a guy that doesn't carry a heavy voice in the locker room, because that seems to be the hole that the Eagles have put Nick Sirianni in.
So, we'll kind of piggybacking off of that, the hole that they put him in, what happens next season? Because obviously if it's a bad season, he's gone. If it's a good season, the coordinators get the credit for it. So what happens moving forward?
Right. So, what also happens, to your point, the coordinators get the credit. I don't think Vic Fangio's going anywhere. He's here because he wants to be around his family. Great. The Eagles are a geographical benefit for Nick Sirianni. The other side of it is that if Kellen Moore really coaches up this team and this offense does a heck of a job, and Kellen Moore gets job opportunities elsewhere, are you really going to go back to a different offensive coordinator and give Jalen Hurts yet another offensive coordinator?
That's a good point. That
doesn't make any sense to me. So you put yourself in this vicious cycle by not locking down a good or great offensive or defensive-minded head coach and making sure that they're going to be here for the long haul. Because until then, the Eagles, let's say they have this great season, which I do expect them to have a great season. Different coordinators, new coordinators, experienced coordinators, coordinators that have had success in the NFL. With these offensive weapons and hopefully more defensive weapons as well, this team is going to be a good football team. Bottom line is also less Nick Sirianni with his hands on the game plan. This team is going to be a good football team. So at the end of the year, let's just say they win a playoff game, they win 2 playoff games. Let's say they go to a Super Bowl. Kellen Moore is going to get recognized around the league. People are going to want to pluck Kellen Moore. I can't think of a situation in the NFL where a team had a deep playoff run, won a Super Bowl maybe, and then fired the head coach to promote the offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen. But it could. It could. If this story ends up developing to that point. But hey, you know what? If we're debating about who should be the head coach after a Super Bowl victory, I'm happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think we'll be happy to talk about that. All right, but you mentioned Jalen Hurts. So moving forward with Jalen Hurts, is he more the 2022? Is he the 2023 version? Or is he somewhere in between? Because obviously it was like night and day both years.
So what is interesting, and I found it good that this was on Nick, Jeffrey Lurie's radar when he addressed the media, because I bring this up to people and it's easily and quickly forgotten. Going into that San Francisco 49ers game, when the Eagles had only lost 1 game, Jalen Hurts was the front runner for the MVP award of the NFL.
It's true.
And let's not forget that 2 years ago.
That's a good point.
He was, let's not forget that 2 years ago, he was the runner-up to only Patrick Mahomes. So that's pretty good. I don't think that there's an in-between. I think you gotta pick on this. And I think that he is absolutely more of the quarterback that we saw in 2022. And Kellen Moore's job, as well as, yes, Jalen Hurts as well, but Kellen Moore will be the famous coach's cliche of putting my player in a better position to make a play and have success. Now it's on Jalen Hurts to make sure that he can have that success, because there's no excuses this year. You have an experienced coordinator who has had a number 1 ranked offense in Kellen Moore. You have not only Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and hopefully a healthy Dallas Goedert to play with as weapons, but you also have a legit all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber running back when you talk about what Saquon Barkley can do for you and what Saquon Barkley can do as a home run hitter in this type of offense. So there's no excuses for Jalen Hurts. I'm a Jalen Hurts guy. I'm excited for this season. I think he should be the franchise quarterback. I would love to have him here in Philadelphia. And the number one reason, yes, talent, what he could do, absolutely. But what really separates him between the Carson Wentz people that want to put him in the same box as Carson Wentz is that Jalen Hurts has the mental capacity, the mental toughness, the mental fortitude to withstand criticism and also withstand lows.
Yeah, true.
I joked even during his 2022 season, I joked about how this guy's on mental steroids. Like his brain, his mentality is on another level. And that's why I would bet on Jalen Hurts a lot more than I would ever at any point bet on Carson Wentz.
Now, okay, but you said something, and you made me think of something here. You think this is going to be a good season coming up, and I'm wondering why. I mean, you mentioned all the great things on the offense, but on the defensive side of the ball, they're still lacking. Do you think Fangio makes that much of a difference, or do you think maybe they're still making some more moves?
I think they're still going to make some more moves. I think they're going to add a corner. The debate right now is that they go corner or offensive line in the first round. I think with the Eagles being the Eagles, they're going to add an offensive lineman in the first round. I think they're going to add a cornerback in the second round. It's deep at offensive lineman. It's deep at corner. So they'll have the opportunity to be able to draft players like that in the upcoming draft. The other side of it, though, goes to Vic Fangio. And the two cliches you hear most about Vic Fangio, there should actually be three. The two that everyone hears about is quarters defense. The other is no blitzing. So a soft defense with not a lot of aggression. You count on your defensive linemen to win their one-on-one battles. You count on your edge running those battles. You're not sending more than 5 very often. So, yeah, those cliches are cliches because they're true. That's what a Vic Fangio defense does. Right. We had the Cliff Notes version of it under Jonathan Gannon and Sean Desai this past year. The other thing that people really need to focus on is the idea that a Vic Fangio defense is a well-disciplined defense. I was out in San Francisco quite a bit when he was going through runs there with the Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick and Jim Harbaugh-led San Francisco 49ers. And my big takeaway from the Vic Fangio defense with those 49ers teams was well-disciplined, good tackling football teams. One of the things that really bothered me with the way the season ended last year on the defensive side of things was there was no disciplined football. There was no gap discipline. There was nothing like that when it came to your defensive line, nothing like that when it came to your corners trying to tackle, James Bradbury being turned around in circles time and time again, Sidney Brown trying to stay disciplined as a rookie. Unfortunately, his season ended prematurely due to injury. But one of the other things I think you need to throw in there, if you're gonna cry about not a lot of pressure, if you're gonna cry about playing quarters defense, you have to throw in a compliment there to Vic Fangio that his teams are well-coached football teams. You don't see him missing a lot of tackles. If they are coming up and they allow a catch, they're making the tackle immediately. It's a catch and then down, not a lot of yards after catch. So that, to me, is something I look forward to seeing. And one of the things Chauncey Gardner-Johnson brings to the table, and I heard a bunch of Miami Dolphins players talking about this, when it comes to the Vic Fangio scheme, if you're a defensive back, you're a safety or corner, you have to understand there's a certain level of freedom that you can play with in a Vic Fangio scheme. Once you understand that freedom, you can really take advantage of it and abuse the heck out of it. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is one of those players that I think has a great understanding of what Vic Fangio's freedom allows a secondary player. So that's one of the things I look forward to actually coming together this season.
So, and keep in mind, obviously, it's only March as we record this, but how do you see it playing out? Look into your Marc Farzetta crystal ball. You think next year is going to be a good year. How many wins? How far do they go? What do you think?
I think it's at least another 11, 12 win season for the Eagles. There is just, look, let me just say that, speaking of cliches, barring injury, I think the coaching is there when it comes to the defensive coordinator. I think the coaching is there when it comes to the offensive coordinator. Like it or not, I think players do like Nick Sirianni. So it's not like he is Nick Sirianni. I don't think he's going to become some type of distraction. I think that coaches, I think the coordinators are going to have exactly what Nick Sirianni said they're going to have, which is control over the offense, control over the defense, while Nick Sirianni is just there to be a extraordinarily emotionally intelligent guy around the players and to help with game planning as far as that goes, and maybe bridging the gap between some of these new coordinators and some of the more veteran players. That's something that I do look forward to this season, and that might be a nice thing I could say about Nick Sirianni in his role here. But all in all, talent is what matters. You have talent, you have work ethic, you have both those things on this roster. My biggest question mark does come on the defensive side of things, but with this offense, I think a very strong offense is going to be your best defense in the worst of times.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So your partner on the postgame show, Seth Joyner, will be happy, is what you're telling me.
I maybe not, because he's still, bottom line, he likes the pressure, he likes being aggressive, and that's not something you're going to see a lot from Vic Fangio. In terms of winning, hey, we all like winning, but as we saw 10-1 last year, people, oh, they're 10-1. What could go wrong? Everything. To answer your question, everything could go wrong. So bottom line is, I don't think Seth's going to be happy until he sees an aggressive defense.
What's he like to work with? Because he does his TV show and he records it at Channel 17. So I bump into him from time to time, and he's always great to everybody there. He's a hell of a nice guy, but man, is he intense when he's talking about the game.
I think Seth Joyner could make a lot of money for himself if he would accept payment for people, like the people to take him dress shopping, or you just clothes shopping in general. Because Seth will tell you that your butt looks big in those pants. Okay, Seth will tell you that dress ain't right for you. You know what I mean? Like, he is that brutally honest.
Well, he's a good dresser.
Like that all the time.
He's a stylish guy. I mean, is he getting those Ventresca suits? He's got some nice suits.
Yes, got great suits, sharp dresser, absolutely. But one of the things that I always try to get used to around Seth, because growing up aware of the legend and being young for his playing days and
sure,
with the Eagles at least, the legend of Seth Joyner follows him around. So I know a lot about Seth Joyner even before working with him. It's good to remember, though, that the guy can be funny. He is actually very funny. And that's one thing that people always ask me, what's it like to work with Seth Joyner? I think the guy's hilarious. The guy is extremely intense.
Totally.
Well, when that intensity, sometimes he throws a curveball by cracking a joke. And that's what a lot of people are very surprised to hear, that Seth Joyner is pretty damn funny.
Right before he recorded his last show of last season, he's at Channel 17, and he's in the green room getting himself together. So I walk in to say hi to him, and his IFB, and you're a TV guy, and for those watching and listening who aren't, it's the earpiece that people on TV wear so they can hear the producers or hear whomever from the control room. So the wire from the IFB connects to a little device in the back. Well, he stepped on the wire, so the wire came out. He's like, "Hey, man, can you put it back in?" And I don't know why I was so nervous, because it's Seth Joyner. My hand's shaking, and I couldn't plug it back in. It literally took me like a minute just to plug this stupid thing back in. But yeah, Seth's great. I love Seth. He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
So all right, we talked Phillies, we talk Eagles. Now do we have to talk Sixers? I guess we do. Do you see this team? I mean, it's probably a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway. Do they have any shot to get past the second round? We all talk about the second round because it hasn't happened in eons. They don't have a shot to get past the second. Well, okay, maybe a shot. Anything's possible. But what are the odds to get past the second round?
Not great, especially if they end up playing in that play-in tournament.
Yes.
And you're going to be drawing some of the... See, one of the things the Sixers have benefited from over the last couple of years here is to make it into that second round, even, is being one of the top three seeds, and then getting an easy first round team, and then being able to blow past them to get in the second round. So you're facing essentially second round talent, maybe in the first round here of the playoffs. Like normal second round talent to you'd be facing in the first, because you're probably going to be such a low seed. That would be beneficial for the Sixers to make it out, make it out of the play-in tournament range and get up to those 6 or 5 in the Eastern Conference. Is going to be extremely difficult. I do think you're going to get Joel Embiid back before the end of the season. You have to get Joel Embiid back before the end of the season. He needs to play himself into shape before everything gets underway.
Well, that's the big question.
Postseason. So I'm crossing my fingers. Yeah, that's a big thing that's haunting the Sixers right now. But I'll say this optimistically. Look, it's not going to end well. Let me get that out of the way. It's not going to end well for the Sixers this year. I don't see them making it out of the second round. I don't see them making it to the third. I don't see them winning a championship. But if you're grasping at straws here for optimism, which I'm going to try to do here, then the thing to grasp onto is maybe Joel Embiid does play himself back into shape. Maybe you do end up playing in the play-in tournament. And maybe that helps him get a couple more games under his belt before the big games start up.
That's true.
And maybe this time with Tyrese Maxey. Again, this is Paulie Pom-Poms. This is not exactly what I think. But maybe this time with Tyrese Maxey being the lead guy on the Sixers has really helped him come into his own. And maybe with Joel Embiid back, you have that two-man game run between him and Tyrese Maxey. Buddy Hield's shot definitely has to fall. Kelly Oubre has to continue to be extremely aggressive like he's been. And then maybe, just maybe, you get something out of the Sixers team that surprised people. I'm not betting on it, Jason Lee, but I am sure as heck hoping for it.
So, okay, was the process or is the process a failure? I mean, we all remember all those awful years. There was that one year they only won 10 games.
Yes.
And it was all to try to get to this point, and they haven't gotten past where, when Doug Collins was the coach, they got to the second round, right? And they still haven't gotten past that point, and we went through the process years. So was the process a failure?
Yes, absolutely. The only thing that will make the process not be a failure is if this year is the first year of magic and all of a sudden the 76ers win, back-to-back or 3 championships in a row or something like that. That ain't happening.
It's got to be magic.
I don't think it starts this year. So, look, I gave Sam Hinkie 3 years, and I remember putting out a question to sports fans at the time. The night they traded Drew Holiday was the night the process began. Mm-hmm. And me and a bunch of other Sixers fans, and I remember I took a lot of calls on it, saying that, all right, I asked the question, all right, if this is going to be a break it down to build it back up, what are you willing to give? Well, how many years are you willing to give of your Sixers fandom to see that this succeeds? Most people said 3. Most hardcore 76ers fans said, I'll give it 3 years.
Makes sense.
You want to acquire assets and all that stuff. A lot of people said no years, always try to win. And that's great, but there's also that NBA mediocrity. There's that purgatory that the Sixers were in for so long.
Sure.
And then the only reason they made it to the second round with the Andre Iguodala, Drew Holiday Sixers was because Joakim Noah got hurt, and of course Derrick Rose got hurt.
I forgot about that.
You're
right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Beating them and then losing to the Celtics in Game 7. And even through the process, to your point, Jason, they have not made it past Game 7 of the second round of the playoffs.
All right.
That still hasn't happened.
So, well, kind of piggybacking that question, will they ever win with Joel Embiid? We know his talent. We know when he's healthy, when he's on, he's one of the best, but the guy can't stay healthy. He can't play a lot of games in a row. Will they ever win with this guy?
He just turned 30 years old. I don't see the Sixers ever winning with Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
And it's not all his fault. Certainly not all his fault.
Of course.
I mean, think about it. A lot of people say Jason Tatum. A lot of people say Jason Tatum wasn't available. You had to take Markelle Fultz. Last time I checked, the number 1 pick is the number 1 pick.
Yes.
And regardless of what was agreed upon behind the scenes, I love that people want to say, oh, you can't do that if you're Brian Colangelo. Really? Really? So all of a sudden, Brian Colangelo is some honorable guy? We found out that wasn't the case. So of all the things, you mean to tell me that he couldn't have taken Jason Tatum and you have Jason Tatum and Joel Embiid playing together? Did Ben Simmons develops a jump shot? Markelle Fultz can shoot. Couple of those things happen.
So many what ifs.
The Sixers choose Jimmy Butler over Ben Simmons and Brett Brown. We're not talking about Kenny Wynn. We're talking about, I can't believe they won. This is amazing.
You know what?
So for me,
you're right.
I think that whether you want to call it karma in the basketball world by the basketball gods or whatever, the bottom line is the process to this point, other than just Joel Embiid and getting to watch him play in the 76ers uniform, the overall goal was not to get an MVP. The overall goal was to win championships.
Yep.
And so far, we have not recouped on our investment.
Like I said, I know I have a few years on you. You weren't around when they won in '83, were you? Were you like a year old?
I'm going
maybe?
to let you in a little family secret. My father doesn't like to say I was named. My father doesn't like to say that I was named after him, but my name was definitely inspired by Mark Ivoroni.
No way! Seriously?
So, I think he was acquired in August. I was born in September. of 82.
Of 82. Okay.
That following calendar year, 83, they won the championship.
Yeah, I was 10 years old when they won.
So that season, they won the championship.
Yeah. I don't remember much about that, but so you were named after Marc Ivor. Is that why it's spelled with a C?
So also in the traditional Italian alphabet, there's no K.
Okay.
And my father's Italian American.
I did not know that. Okay.
I guess Mark Ivoroni went with the same thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Remember how Dave Zinkoff, well, I mean, you were kind of young, but the way Dave Zinkoff said Marc Ivoroni, he was the legendary public address announcer, back in the 80s and I guess into the 70s as well. Fun fact, and honest to God, as Big Daddy Graham used to say, true story, my grandmother on my father's side dated Dave Zinkoff. So I could have been Jason Zinkoff. He's the one who said, Irving. You've heard him before, I'm sure.
Oh, I've heard him do it. I actually do a tribute as the Wings announcer. I do a tribute to Dave Zinkoff with the way I announce no smoking in the Wells Fargo Center.
No way. Can I hear it?
And it's a tribute to Dave Zinkoff, and it's a tribute to Joe Conklin, who does zinc better than anybody.
Absolutely.
And it's when he would do the non-smoking neighbor. I always say the Wells Fargo Center. I always say the Wells Fargo Center is a non-smoking arena. Just like that.
You know what?
In honor.
Now,
in honor.
I got to get to a Wings game, man. I have to. I've not been to a Wings game since you've been doing their PA, because you've been there for a few years now, right?
This is my third season.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know, man. I can score you some tickets.
Can you? All right.
Come on, man. I got pull.
I love it. See, it pays to know people. It pays to know. See, I know Marc Farzetta. Pays to know people. All right. Hey, so
Just say that at the door. Just say that at the door. I know Marc Farzetta.
I'm going to go up to the Wells Fargo Center. Look, I don't have a ticket, but I'm Mark's friend. All right. Jason Lee. Jason who? No, Marc Farzetta's friend. Okay.
Yeah. Show him the screen grab of your show. That's it. That's all
there you go. I like it. So, okay, I know you worked with Keith Jones for a long time, right? When you were at WIP, you worked with Jonesy, right?
Sure.
Were you shocked when he took the job with the Flyers? I don't want to say are you shocked, because obviously the guy's an intelligent guy, but are you surprised at how quick the turnaround's been with the Flyers?
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. I mean, I wanted the Flyers to just kind of pack it in this year, not make the playoffs, and then start and continue the rebuild, so to speak. Well, I've gotten a lot more than that, and as they've won games, now they've got points. And the time we tape this, they just picked up a huge point against the Rangers.
Yeah,
I find myself just longing for playoff hockey again. Yeah, insane game, and I find myself just longing for playoff hockey.
Yeah, there's nothing like playoff hockey.
I need to see it.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm with you. I don't know if you went to games at the Spectrum, playoff games at the Spectrum as a kid, but
sure.
I remember. I want to say I was 12 or 13 years old. I went to the first game of the. I guess was it the Wales? It was the Wales Conference, right? It was back then. It was the Campbell Conference and the Wales Conference, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So it was, I guess, like the Wales. So, yeah. It was like the Wales Conference quarterfinals or whatever. I don't know. It was the first round of the playoffs. It was Flyers and Rangers. Went into overtime. Mark Howe scored the goal to win in overtime, and they won 4-3. And I mean, not to be cliche, but the Spectrum games like that, the Spectrum rocked. I miss the Spectrum so much. But you're right. Overall, playoff hockey, I miss that. Maybe we'll get it this year. Who knows?
Yeah, I remember the last game at the Spectrum. Yeah, I remember the last game at the Spectrum. The Flyers played that like couple games over there. Before they tore it down and made it Xfinity Live. I remember everyone in the stands being like, "Oh, this arena's still so great. They can't tear this down. It'd be stupid to tear this down. It still works. Everything's great." And then it was like, the horn went off for the first intermission. Everybody went to the merchandise and concessions area.
Yeah.
And it was like
shoulder
to shoulder. Like
you were packed in like sardines. There were lines at the restrooms between periods. I mean, I used to miss the last 5 minutes of a period. If I went to a hockey game at the Spectrum and I had to use the restroom, I would leave during the period so I wouldn't have to wait in line. Because and you're right. You were packed in like sardines. So I didn't leave my seat between periods. I would get a hot dog or whatever. I'd miss the game, but at least there was no crowd. But yeah, I so miss playoff hockey. But how impressive are Jonesy and Danny Briere? And I'll tell you what, I'm a big fan of John Tortorella as well.
I absolutely love John Tortorella. The attitude on the bench, I love. I know he apologized for some actions the other night, but hey, it is what it is. You take the good with the bad with an emotional head coach.
Sure.
But when it comes to Danny Briere, this is a guy that didn't just get thrown into the mix. He had spent some years there in the front office, learning the moves and learning how the business side of hockey worked, more so as a player, more so than he did as a player. And then Jonesy, because a lot of people ask me about Keith Jones, and yeah, I worked with him for 13 years. Then I was at WIP. And when Jonesy got the lead analyst role for the NHL on their newly acquired Outdoor Life Network, before it was Versus,
I forgot about that.
People were shocked.
Yeah.
And they're like, Jonesy, going to be a serious analyst? I tell people the story. Jonesy asked me to put together, he paid me for this, so it wasn't out of the goodness of my heart. He was like, all right, I need to go over every line in the NHL, make me a book on the lines in the NHL. And I had a source to go to. It wasn't like I just made this off the top of my head. And it was a binder. I'm not kidding you when I say it was this thick. And he studied that thing, man. And he got ready for his test to prove that he had enough hockey knowledge about the current game to get that position. And I'll always say this about Jonesy: any challenge that's in front of him, whether that's making it to the NHL, whether that's helping a guy like Peter Forsberg and becoming, I think he was third in the NHL in power play goals when he was on the line with Forsberg, learning how to play with talent like that, having the career he had. I absolutely love that guy. Awesome dude. And I couldn't be happier for him in his first year doing what he's been doing. And the Flyers playing as well as they've been playing in the Jonesy Briere era.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
It's awesome to see, and hopefully we will get playoff hockey. Hopefully this season. You never know. All right, I want to ask you about a couple things before I let you go. I saw you on the Birds 365 the other day with Jody Mack and John McMullen. You were talking about, before you guys started talking football, you were talking about like you're like Bob Vila or something. You're like a big woodworker. Mark, I've known you for almost 20 years. I had no idea. So you got to tell me, like, what kind of stuff, like the shelf behind you. Did you build that?
I did. This came with the house when we bought it
nice.
About a year ago, so I didn't do this. But no, I am in no way a master carpenter or anything like that. I'm no Bob Vila. I'm not even a Nick Offerman. Okay, I enjoy it. I know a little bit. My uncle John Farzetta is a contractor, carpenter. My cousin Greg, my father's cousin Greg, builds his own cabinets and enjoys woodworking. My father is good at it as well. The little things I picked up that I take and I apply to build like a little thing, like a shoe rack I built. I'm building these shelves right now to go along my TV. I bought my wife I built my wife a makeup stand for her essentials in the what do you call it, hair dryer,
smart man,
stuff like that. Yeah, right. I just enjoy it, and I think I built myself a pasta board out of some real nice maple wood. It's a huge pasta board. It's like 2 foot by 4 foot, and it's been great. Made a lot of good ravioli on that thing. But yeah, I just enjoy that. And when I'm not sure of, I'll call a family member or I'll look it up on YouTube or whatever. But yeah, I find that my life is most complete when I have some little woodworking project I'm working on.
I had no idea, but as always, you are very impressive, my friend. In your years before you got on the air,
wait till you see it when it's all crooked and everything.
No, well, I'm sure the pasta board looks great, and you're making some good pasta too. Did you ever produce for Jody Mack before you got on the air at IP? Because he and Glenn, they were middays together for a long time. They were Mac and Mac. Did you ever work with those guys?
I think by the time Jody came along, or by the time Jody came back, I should say, I was in the update booth. I don't think I ever produced. I don't think I ever produced for Jody. I think I was in the update booth by then.
Can I tell you a funny Jody Mack producing story?
What's that?
So it's like 1995. Okay, I was a producer at WIP for like 6 months. I got full time at B101, so I didn't stay at IP very long. But I produced Mac and Mac, and they did a show. I forget the day, but like every whatever. From the Berlin McDonald's, Berlin, New Jersey, okay? And back then, Not like it is now, where everything's high tech and the hosts have laptops. It was very Flintstones back then. I was the on-site producer. I was on a line with the producer back at the station, and we were filling out paper slips with the names and the locations of the callers. So every once in a while, I would hand the pile of slips over to the host so they could say, all right, Mark from, Delaware County, you're on the air. So at one point, Jody's talking they're on the air. Jody's talking. I reach over to hand over a pile of slips, and I knock his coffee over. All right. While they're on the air, I knock his coffee over, and Jody is getting napkins to sop it all up. And meantime, he's still talking to the caller, and Glenn's talking to the caller. And I'm thinking they're gonna kill me when they go into commercial break. They're gonna rip my head off when we go into commercial break. So they go into break, and obviously, I'm apologizing profusely. Jody, I'm so sorry. Can I get you another cup of coffee? I'm really sorry. Let me get you another cup of coffee. He's like, shit happens. Don't worry about it. I was going to switch to soda anyway. So, I mean, that was so cool. And by the way, I love the fact that we're online so I can say that word. I noticed that
Jody's the best. No, Jody's awesome. Glenn as well, but that sounds like very Jody McDonald.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very Jody McDonald story.
Oh, yeah. He was, like I said, I thought he was going to scream at me because, I made it very difficult for him to do his job, but no, he was great. He was great. I'm curious. I've known you a long time. Who are your influences in terms of broadcasting? Who made you want to do this for a living?
Funny you said, I always loved Bob Costas. I just always.
You and I have talked about that. Me too. I love the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and my brother one year for I think it was my birthday, I love Bob Costas, and the story of the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team is one I've always loved. And my brother found a voiceover of Bob Costas talking about, in documentary style, that 1980 Olympic hockey team. And I on that same documentary is Al Michaels, and of course Bob Costas is like the lead voiceover guy for the documentary. So I just would listen to that time and time again, and just listening to his cadence and listening to his delivery. And it was like I was as enamored with the way the story was being told as much as I was enamored with the story itself.
Yeah.
Like if you just laid out the facts of what the U.S. Olympic hockey team did, amazing. But to me, for whatever reason, just listening to someone tell that story was like, wow, every point of emphasis they're making is just on point. It's perfect. And I became enamored with that, amazed by it. Definitely always been inspired by him, and really made me interested in being involved in any type of broadcasting. And as far as going back to the Wings and being a PA announcer, Dan Baker certainly is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Love Dan Baker. But my first baseball game ever was actually at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. My mother's from Baltimore.
Wow.
Yeah, my mother's from Baltimore. We lived down there for a brief period. We moved from Ambler to Rochester, New York, to Baltimore, and then back to the Philly area. And I remember meeting Rex Barney. And Rex Barney was the public address announcer for the Orioles. And his big claim to fame for any Phillies fans that went down for a game was thank you, or give that fan a contract. And I just always thought that was a cool thing. And I got to meet him. And I'll never forget, I got his autograph when I was about 9 years old. And he gave me the autograph back, and I said, to Rex Barney, I said, Rex, thank you. And I'll never forget, he said, oh, way to go. And I don't know how old he was, but he was in his 80s. And I'll never forget, he just looked at me and goes, oh, way to go, young fella. You might take my job one day. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then
look at
being
you
the
now.
PA announcer now is in tribute to him, and of course my friendship with Dan Baker as well.
Dan Baker is one of the all-time greats. Lou Nolan is one of the all-time greats. I mean, we got some good PA guys. Kevin Casey with the Union, I think, is fantastic as well. And of course, the guy who does the Wings.
Certainly. that fella, yeah, absolutely.
But you know what?
Yeah. And Lou is. I don't want to leave Lou out. I met Lou when I was in college, and I just asked him about being on the mic, and he gave me more than the time of day, man. He talked to me at intermission one time, and I brought that up to him when I was working behind the scenes with the NHL and NBC doing a Flyers game.
Right.
And I got to talk to Lou again. I said, hey, by the way, you gave me some great advice. He goes, well, I'm glad it was good because you're here.
No, Lou's a great guy, and I think it's so cool that you grew up, looking up to Bob Costas, and then you got to work with him. That had to be amazing.
I just got a text from him 2 nights ago.
Seriously?
And greatest sports legends. I mean, we're not like best friends, you know what I mean? But we have a relationship, and he was watching. He told me he was channel surfing after one of the college basketball games for March Madness, and he said, "What do I come across but greatest sports legends then and now?" And there you are. Great job. Hope all is well, BC. And I'm like, this is amazing. Dude, he was watching. He happened to come across Greatest Sports Legends, which I do with Greg Murphy and Wes Hall. And I was like, Bob, you're the man. Thanks so much for, thanks for the note. Appreciate you. Hope all is well.
That's something you save. That is something you save.
Yeah. Screen grab it, frame it. Yeah.
Can you get him on my podcast? I grew up idolizing. Seriously, no lie, Mark. I grew up idolizing Bob Costas. I mean, him, Harry Callis, and Gene Hart and Merrill Reese were the 4 reasons I wanted to get into broadcasting. And I remember vividly as a kid, my best friend's family took us to it was a Saturday Phillies game, NBC game of the week, and Phillies and Pirates. Bob Costas is doing the game with Tony Kubek, and my friend's family liked to get there really early to watch batting practice. So we go down front and watch batting practice, and there goes Bob Costas walking across the field. And me, I'm already a broadcasting geek. I'm like, Bob, hey! And so, he reaches, I probably told you the story because I've told everybody the story. But he reaches into his pocket and he takes out a pen and he tosses it towards us. My friend, back then and now, is a lot taller than me. He got the pen. It was an NBC pen. An NBC pen with a print of Bob Costas' signature on it. He gave it to me, but my friend kept it, and then my friend lost it. So I never got my Bob Costas pen.
Yeah, what's your friend doing now? I bet she's not talking to a microphone for a living. What's he doing?
He's done a lot. The great thing is we're still friends. We've been friends since we were 3 years old. I'm now 51, so it's been a long time. But he's a good dude, even though he took my pen when we were 12 years old. All right, last question. And I always hate the sports radio cliche of the whole Mt Rushmore thing, but I'll ask it to you anyway. The Mt Rushmore of Philadelphia sports radio, who would you put up there?
Angelo Cataldi, Mike Missinelli.
Yep.
Howard Eskin.
So far, ours are identical. We'll see if the last one is the same.
Yeah. The last one. I got to go with the guy that really pioneered it, that really helped pioneer it.
I know what you're going to say.
Fredericks.
Yep. Ours are identical.
Yeah.
Ours are identical.
I think Steve Fredericks, I have vivid memories of Steve Fredericks being on more so late the evening show on WIP, and which I don't think he did for very long because he was middays, afternoons.
Well,
he was with Missinelli for a while.
Yeah,
too.
He was with Missinelli in the afternoon. Then they put Missinelli and Eskin together and moved Steve to like 7 to 11 p.m. I think.
Yeah, that's when I caught him the most at that time because by then I was in high school and college. I was out at night a lot there, Jason, and I'd be in the car and I'd be listening to the radio. And
you were hanging out at Perkins, weren't you?
I hear a lot of Steve Fredericks. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was in the claw machine. I swear I'm going to win this. Anyway, Steve Fredericks I'd have to put up there. That'd be my Mount Rushmore. Absolutely.
I remember Steve Fredericks from WCAU, which was 12:10 a.m. It was a talk station. It's a talk station now, but back in the day, WCAU 12:10, they had the Phillies games, and Steve Fredericks did a show called Sportsline at night. And you probably know, because you're a radio guy, that's a 50,000-watt clear channel station. You could hear it halfway across the country. You could hear it in Canada. You can hear it like in Bermuda. That station got out there. And, he would always come on the mic and talk about, across the 38 states and parts of Canada. And, and then I think he was at FAN in New York for a little while, too, before he came back to Philly. Because CBS pulled the plug on CAU and made it OGL AM and made it oldies. And then Steve went up to New York for a little while. But he eventually came back to Philly. But, yeah, I'm with you. Fredericks, Missinelli, Angelo and Eskin. And I would put Eskin and Missinelli on opposite ends.
For the peace of everybody else, that's probably a good idea.
But those guys are definitely deserving. Mark, listen, man, I love talking to you, and I feel like you and I could probably talk all day. And every time I talk, I say to you, I got to take you out to lunch. I got to take you out for a beer or something. And I swear to you, we're going to make that happen because, dude, I love you, man. I think you're awesome. You've been a great friend. Anytime. I'll tell a quick story, okay? How many times did I call you when I was doing my TV show? How many times did I call you and say, look, man, a guest bailed on me. Can you come on with me?
I'm going to go ahead and say too many, Jason.
And you never let me down. There was one time, I shouldn't say this, but there was one time that a guest backed out on me. So I was supposed to tape the show that morning at 10:30. He texted me at 7 o'clock that morning and said, listen, I can't do it. I don't want to mention who it was. But my reaction was, "Are you kidding me?" That should probably tell you who it was. No, listen, I honestly don't blame the guy because there was a controversy going on with the Sixers at the time, and he was afraid that I put him on. I wouldn't put him on the spot as you would not as well. You don't do that to a guest, but I called you, Mark. Are you free? Are you free at 10:30, 11 o'clock? You're like, yeah, I can make myself free. So. Yeah. I appreciate you, my friend. I've really enjoyed the conversation. This was great, and I hope we can do it again. All right?
All right. I love you right back, brother. And, if I didn't still owe you for helping me fix the toner and the printer that one time at WIP overnight, I would not have come on your show as many times as I did.
You remember that story much better for me than I do because I remember you calling me up and saying that you couldn't print anything, and I remember being no help whatsoever. You're saying I helped you. So I'll go along with that.
I think from what I remember, you drove back and you fixed it. You put it on like a hard hat and one of them rubber bands with the flashlight, and you just went to town on that printer.
I went back to Tubala and I took the thing apart and I couldn't figure out how to put it back together. So then you and I did some woodworking and we built a wooden printer.
Exactly. So. It's still the only one. It's still the only one of its kind. Serial number 1.
There you go.
It's amazing.
Mark, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure, brother.
All right, you got it. And thank you for tuning in to episode 11 of the Philly Sports Convo. We'll talk to you next time. Stay connected with us on social media. Join our Discord community and grab merch from our shop. The Philly Sports Convo is a Blue Eye Visual production.